Good evening, everyone, and welcome. We're just going to give everyone a few more seconds to get logged in and settled before starting our presentation.
Do you want me to share my screen yet?
That'd be great. Thanks, Mark. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Strategies for Student Loan Debt. My name is Amanda O'Brien. I will be your webinar specialist this evening. If you experience any technical issues during this evening's presentation, please utilize the chat function and I will address your issue as soon as I can. Also, if you have any questions for our presenter this evening, Mark Johnson or Art Wiederman, please utilize the Q&A function. And as we go through the presentation, Art and Mark will address your questions. As a reminder, tonight's presentation is being recorded and will be presented on our YouTube channel later this week, along with a copy of the slide deck. And with that, I'm going to turn our time over to Mark and Art.
Thank you, Amanda. As always, you do a wonderful job in quarterbacking our webinars. And hello, everyone. My name is Art Wiederman. I am a dental division director for the CPA firm of Eide Bailey. I've been a dental CPA for close to 37 years, and I am honored and privileged to partner up with 6 local dental societies here in Southern California to put on what we have called the Business of Dentistry year-long webinar. If you are interested in our webinars, you can go to our webpage, which is www.eidebailey.com, and go to dental series and register for these. Next month we do them the second Wednesday of every month. So next month will be July the 14th. And I am very, very excited about our guest next month, as I am about our guest tonight. Gary Takis, who is a world-renowned dental consultant, a very, very good friend of mine, is going to be talking to you about how to consider reducing your dependence on insurance. And that doesn't mean you get rid of your medical insurance. That means reducing your dependency on PPOs and HMOs and trying to create more of a fee-for-service practice. And Gary is an absolute master at that. So be sure not to miss that and tell your friends. I want to thank the executive directors of our 6 wonderful local dental societies for quarterbacking and sponsoring these this webinar series. And that would be Leah Deshian from the San Gabriel Valley Dental Society, Greg Orloff from the Los Angeles Dental Society, Kurt Thornton from the San Fernando Valley Dental Society, Megan Francis from my home dental society, the Orange County Dental Society, Michelle Schneider from the West Los Angeles or Western Dental Society, and Kristen Avina from the Harbor Dental Society. Thank you all, and thank you all of you who have listened and listened to the prior webinars. We are hopefully approaching the point that the COVID-19 pandemic will be in our rearview mirrors. The state of California is supposed to open up for business on June 15th, and we are seeing a lot of our dental practices, just so you know, that are growing, that are very, very busy, people coming out of the woodwork. I called that a year ago when all the people, 15%, 20% of the people who wouldn't go to the dentist, regardless of how safe it was. Now that we have, over 50% of the population vaccinated, we're seeing success. So I hope you are also seeing success. Tonight, our guest is Mark Johnson. We'll get to Mark in a moment. He is the founder of Student Loan RX, a wealth advisor with RBF Wealth Advisors. And our topic tonight is going to be student loans, and we'll get to that. That's going to be the gist of what we're going to talk about tonight. But I do want to touch on one thing that we've been reminding everybody about. So for all of those of you who have gotten your PPP, Paycheck Protection Program loans, you want to make sure, if you have not filed for your SBA forgiveness on your first loan, take a look at the date you got the money, add 24 weeks to that, take that date and add 10 months to that. So if you got your loan in the beginning of May, your period will end sometime in the middle of October. So you will have some time in the middle of August that you have to file for your forgiveness. Now, I just want to remind everybody again that the government allowed, as of December 27th, that if you had a PPP loan, you can also take advantage of the employee retention tax credit, which is a credit for 2020, that if you had a greater than 50% reduction in your revenues for more than likely the second quarter, which is when everybody had shut down for 8 to 12 weeks, versus the second quarter of 2019, you can literally qualify for tens of thousands of dollars in ERTC. At Eide Bailey, we are working with dozens and dozens of dentists, and we are helping them to get tens of thousands, and in several cases, hundreds of thousands of dollars through the employee retention tax credit. If you have not filed for forgiveness, you should evaluate this opportunity. If you have already filed for forgiveness, you still have a great opportunity. It might just be a little less, but the numbers, even for those who have filed for forgiveness, are really, really good. So we have a team of over 20 people. I found out it's closer to 30 people who are helping dentists. So if you are interested in this, and we can be of assistance to you in helping you slice and dice the wages you paid in 2020, get maximum employee retention tax credit, and also get full forgiveness of your PPP loan, feel free to get a hold of us. at Eide Bailey, and we'll be happy to help you. Mark, let's go to the next slide. If you like podcasts, I do a weekly podcast called The Art of Dental Finance and Management. In fact, our guest tonight, Mark Johnson, is a two-time guest on our podcast. He was on in 2019, and then we had him back again a month or two ago. And you are going to love his information. We release these podcasts. It's now every other Wednesday. Sign up to subscribe at these podcasts at www.idbailey.com/dental-cpa-podcast. And it's also on our YouTube channel. And we've got lots of great information. In fact, the one that came out today is also on the employee retention tax credit. So with that said, I want to introduce Mark Johnson. As I mentioned before, Mark is the president of Student Loan RX, and Mark is a wealth advisor at RBF Wealth Advisors in St. Louis, Missouri. I got to know Mark several years ago. If you have student loans, if you have associates that have student loans, friends, classmates, anybody that has student loans, and we see people having student loans into their 40s and their 50s. If you have student loans and you want to know how to manage them and what to do with them, Mark is your guy, plain and simple. So Mark is going to talk to you about repayment strategies, financial planning strategies, and all that kind of stuff. So with that, Mark, I'm going to turn it over to you. Folks, if you do have any questions for Mark about anything, as Amanda mentioned, please type them into the Q&A function. I will be the Q&A guy tonight. And as these questions come up, we'll address all of them as soon as possible. We will we will be respectful of your time and be done no later than 8, maybe a little sooner. We'll just have to see. So Mark, how are you doing tonight? That arch looks really good.
Oh, thanks, Art. Nice to be here with you guys tonight. I'm doing okay. I've got a little bit of a summer cold here. I know you guys don't get head colds in California.
No,
I wish this was a live presentation in California. I'd be feeling a little better tonight. But anyway, it's a pleasure for me to be with you guys, and I'm really excited to be able to share some insights that we've uncovered over the last number of years in working with our dental clients. And so we'll just jump right into the presentation, okay?
Sounds good, Mark. I'm looking forward.
Give a little bit of context on who we are. So again, my name is Mark Johnson. I'm the founder of studentloansrx.com, and you can visit our website at studentloansrx.com. If you hear anything this evening that might be a benefit to you or maybe one of your colleagues or associates, up in the top right-hand corner of our homepage, you can just click on free consult, and we can get a 30-minute Zoom session, no obligation, free of charge, set up to visit with you. So I'm also a wealth advisor at RBF Wealth Advisors in St. Louis, and we've been in business a little over 30 years, manage today just over 400, almost 500 million in investment assets. We have clients all over the U.S. We have 7 wealth advisor professionals, average experience over 25 years. And we are an independent fiduciary registered investment advisor. Thought that this might be helpful. Actually, Art mentioned that next month, Gary Takis is the guest speaker. And Gary also has a dental podcast called The Thriving Dentist. He produces that out of Midwestern University in Scottsdale, Arizona, or Phoenix, just on the north end of Phoenix, Mesa, I think it is. And I've actually visited that campus and been on his podcast. But this is a list of the recent dental podcasts that I've been on in the last maybe 120 days. So if Art obviously has a fantastic podcast, and here's some others that you might recognize. So I want to share with you a little bit about how we got started in the student loan space. So as Art said, I'm a wealth advisor. I've been in the investment industry almost 30 years. And I had the opportunity, my wife's a nurse. I'm on a a hospital board here in St. Louis. And so University Hospital Board. And through that connection, I actually got invited to do an investment presentation to a group of orthodontic residents at St. Louis University. And so I went into that presentation and I talked about basic financial planning stuff like budgeting, investments, insurance. And I did not mention the word student loans one time. 7 years ago, I did not know anything about student loans, had no interest in them. I heard there was a crisis out there. It hadn't touched my family. Most of my clients, if they had kids in college, they were taking out loans or paying for them. It just never came up in conversation in terms of my work with my customers, my investment clients. And so in 2013, I got invited to do this presentation. And then afterwards, several of them wanted to visit with me. Several of these orthodontic residents wanted to visit with me about investing. And then there's this little coffee shop around the corner of the program. So I was meeting with them one-on-one, and they started coming in. And as I get to know them, they said, well, I've got 400,000. I've got 375,000 in student loan debt. I've got 500,000. One of them had 750,000 in student loan debt. And they said, lots of folks come in and talk to us in the residency program about insurance or investments, buy us pizza, but nobody ever talks about student loans. Don't you financial advisors or wealth advisors, don't you get any training on student loans? And I was embarrassed to say, no, we don't. It's not something, that we deal with. It's not part of my licensure or anything like that. And I've never taken a class, never been offered to take a class on student loan repayment planning. And so I said, but you know what? I've been in the business 30 years. Maybe there's somebody out there at that point, not 30 years. I've been in the business, 20 some years at that point. And I said, but I know a lot of financial advisors. Let me see if I can find somebody that might be able to help you. So I started poking around in St. Louis, couldn't find anybody. I expanded my search. Long story short, a light bulb went off and I said, guess what? No one in my industry is helping graduate level healthcare professionals, or at least dental professionals, figure out what to do with their student loan debt. And so I learned everything I could learn. And over the past 7 years, developed some strategies. In the last, obviously, I try to visit 8 to 10 dental schools a year or residency programs. We're based here in St. Louis. We got a half a dozen or so within a 3 to 4 hour drive of St. Louis. And I've got friends all over the country from, 53 years of life. And if there's a dental school there and I want to go see my buddy in Portland, Maine, last week I was in New England visiting Boston University and the University of New England as an example. And, I start working at that school, get an invitation from the American Student Dental Association to come up and do a lunch and learn or a happy hour or something like that. And so that was kind of my marketing plan prior to COVID. And then I do, obviously a number of podcasts and get invited to speak to groups like this. And so business is great. And then COVID hits and I'm thinking, oh no, my marketing is going to go to zero because I can't get on the road and speak to these students. And we didn't skip a beat. Last year, we did no traveling and my business was fantastic. And so we're back on the road this year. And so in the last 12 months, we've worked with dental students coming out of 17 different dental schools, 12 different residency programs. And literally we have clients from Maine to Hawaii and everywhere in between. So what I wanted to share that with you because I think it's going to be very unique that you're going to hear a discussion on student loan planning from, an investment advisor. I'm obviously licensed in investments and insurance, and but I spend probably 75% of my time working with dental professionals and other healthcare professionals, but mostly dental professionals. You guys come out of dental school and residency with the most student loan debt of any healthcare professional. I don't know if you knew that or not, but the average dentist is graduating with about 350,000 in student loan debt today. And I've got clients anywhere from, $150,000 in student loan debt, and I have one endodontist. I'm not sure if he's on the call or not tonight. He's in Southern California with $1 million of student loan debt, and everywhere in between. So the way that I approach student loan repayment planning is I take the same skills and techniques and planning tools essentially that we would use with any other client that came in and said, hey, I need help putting together a financial plan. So, I start out really understanding their financial situation, and then what are their financial goals. So we help them create a budget. We review all their insurance and employee benefits. We help them start working on an investment plan, which oftentimes includes practice ownership. And then hopefully there's a little bit of money left over for fun. But if you're graduating with 350, 400, 500,000 in student loan debt, which is probably 450,000 is kind of my sweet spot, or the average student loan debt that clients come to me with, that's going to be right in the center of your financial plan, because no matter what you decide to do with 400,000 in student loan debt, it's going to impact all of the other areas of your financial life. And so getting it right is going to be critically important, and getting it wrong costs graduates thousands of dollars in unnecessary interest and a lot of anxiety. And I'm a firm believer in, having done this now, for having worked in this space for going on 7 years, there's going to be 7,000 dental students graduating. About half of them have already graduated in the last few weeks, and then the rest of them will graduate here in the next couple weeks. But about 7,000 dental graduates, and there's another 1,500 dental residents graduating each and every year. And I speak to a fraction of them. I speak to quite a few of them, but I probably get in front of 1,000 of those folks a year in some form or fashion, either through a podcast. Actually, I got a couple thousand of them on my email newsletter. So, I touch maybe a couple thousand of them each year. Obviously, a much smaller number of them actually engage us and hire us, but I'm convinced, because about 20% of my business is what I call redos. These are people that graduated either from dental school or residency. They went out and tried to figure this out on their own, and a couple years later, maybe 2, 3, 4. Last year, I worked with somebody who'd been out of dental school 10 years, and we were able to help her create a much more efficient way of paying off the rest of her student loans. So I'm convinced that there's thousands of dentists graduated who are on the wrong repayment method and have cost themselves and are costing themselves unnecessary expense in how they are approaching their student loan repayment. So we believe that addressing your student loan debt in the context of an overall financial plan is the best approach, and that's how we approach it. So when somebody comes to us, we talk about the financial planning pyramid, and to create a successful financial plan, it's not just going to require some help from someone like me, but you need a tax professional like Art, has a deep understanding of what a dentist is going to face, especially if they're a practice owner. They're going to need a legal professional. Anytime someone signs an employment agreement or is in the process of purchasing a building or a practice, obviously a legal professional needs to be brought in. You'll need a property casualty agent if you've own a building and you've got some equipment and those types of things. And then I think someone like us, someone that can kind of pull all those pieces together and help you develop that financial plan. We start out with establishing that wealth foundation. So for someone coming out of school or residency, we actually help them review their employment agreements. And I tell them up front, you need to get a lawyer for the legal stuff. But I probably review a couple hundred dental agreements a year with clients. And we're helping them focus on the financial aspects of the agreement. How much am I going to get paid? What are my benefits worth? So if we've got 2 or 3 offers coming in, maybe they got a private practice that's offering them a job. Maybe they have $500,000 in student loan debt. they got a private practice that's offering them a job, they got a DSO, and maybe because they've got so much student loan debt, they're also entertaining offers in the public health sector. And so we sit down and do a Zoom session. Unless they're here in St. Louis, they come to the office, but oftentimes they're not in St. Louis. We do a Zoom session. They email me copies of their employment agreements, and we walk through the financial aspects so that they're in a position to compare apples to apples. And then they sign an agreement. Once they sign an agreement, we have an opportunity to start working on a budget and developing their student loan repayment strategy. We review their employee benefits, decide whether they need any supplemental disability insurance or life insurance, depending on what employee benefits, are available. And then once we get the foundation established, then we can start having some fun, and we talk about saving, investing, and practice ownership. So I always tell dental graduates and residents that the number one best strategy for student loan repayment is to become a practice owner as soon as possible. And I like to set a target date in their minds of somewhere between 24 to 36 months after graduation. Now, I will tell you, a lot of graduates think that they're not going to be prepared in 24 to 36 months. They think there's a lot to learn, and I'm not saying that there's not, but I really want them to be focused on that, because I see the results of that. When a client of mine buys a practice, typically within 12 to 18 months of buying that practice, their income has doubled. And so with student loans being $354,000, $500,000, I know the best way for them to repay that is to become a practice owner as soon as possible, and then implement some of the strategies that I have uncovered and developed, and then we're off to the races. So just a little bit, we've been living in a very unusual time for the last year and a half. And again, I apologize for my voice. I've got this summer cold. I'm going to take a quick drink of water. So back on March 13th, 2020, President Trump made an executive order. He ordered the Department of Education to suspend all student loan interest and student loan payments on most federal student loans. And then on March 27th, Congress passed and he signed the CARES Act. And President Biden has since extended many of the provisions in the CARES Act relating to student loans and other things through September 30th. So just to give you an example, the average student graduating with $350,000 in student loan debt, if they had $350,000 of student loan debt on March 13th of 2020, and they don't have to make any payments or interest accrual until September 30th, if we assume roughly 6.25% interest rate, and that's about what graduates are facing right now, that's $32,000 in savings. So the CARES Act, President Trump, the CARES Act, and extended by President Biden has really helped out dental professionals and other federal loan borrowers with large sums of student loan debt. We'll see if there's any additional relief that's offered. There's some rumor that the September 30th deadline might get pushed to the end of the year, but we'll see what happens there. So when I sit down and visit with a recent graduate or somebody who maybe's been out of school a while, but maybe they're not confident in their repayment strategy, this is kind of the list of questions that I initially run through. So talk to me about your career path. If you're a recent graduate and you're an associate somewhere, whether you're in a for-profit or a nonprofit employer, we're going to talk a little bit about where you want to see your career go. Is practice ownership something that you're working towards? Would you rather just be a partner in a practice? Are you happy staying in public health and putting in your 10 years and then having any remainder forgiven, tax-free? So we go through that. I talk about their family situation. What is your gut telling you? Do you want to pay off these loans aggressively? And what does that mean? What does aggressively mean? I've had clients pay off $400,000 in 4 years, And I've had clients with 250,000 in student loan debt that want to pay it off over 20 years. So, do you want to keep your payments low? Obviously, I'm 53 years old. So I'm old enough to be the father of anybody graduating from dental school this year. And so this generation has maybe a slightly different take on debt than at least I did growing up, and my view on it today. But a lot of them, I have clients that go out and buy a brand new car and buy a house before they've even started their first day of work. Once they get a signed employment agreement, banks are, they're tripping over themselves to throw money at graduates. Dentists have a very low default rate on loans. And so hopefully the graduate gets to me before they get to the banker, and I can talk them out of buying that new car. And maybe especially today, I don't know, I think real estate prices are crazy in California every day, any year, but based on our real estate out here in the Midwest. But real estate prices are at the top of the market. Interest rates have only one place to go, which is up. And I fear that anybody buying a house today, 2 years from now is probably going to regret that decision, or their house is likely to be worth less, in the next 18 to 24 months. We'll see if that prediction comes true or not. But I kind of feel my son just put a house up for sale, asking price $294, which is a really nice house in the suburb here. And he had 5 people bidding on it, and he got $27,000 over asking price. And anytime you sell something over asking price, that's an indication of a bubble. Art, you have something you wanted to say?
Did you say $294,000?
Yeah, I know that buys a double wide in Southern
No,
California.
it doesn't even buy a single wide. But yeah, I mean, that is, we have a lot of people moving out of California, but I just heard 294,000. You got
Yeah, so maybe the second best idea to pay off student loans is to leave California and move to St. Louis.
Well, that's going to be tough.
But anyway,
yeah.
Anyway, I shouldn't say that talking to California dental societies. But
no worries.
Anyway,
I'll let you get back to it.
You guys have a beautiful state. Love California. Anyway, so what I want to do is talk a little bit get into the weeds a little bit here and talk about the different repayment options that are out there. So basically, you've got 2 main areas that you're going to explore when you're looking to establish a repayment plan. You have the federal government. So most dentists that are graduating today, the bulk of their student loan debt is going to be federal student loans. So graduate plus loans and those types of loans, okay? They also might have some private loans. So I visited with a young lady today, one of my last appointments before we got on here, graduating with about 400,000 in student loans. 350,000 roughly was federal student loans, and she had 50,000 in private student loans through Sallie Mae. Okay. When you approach a repayment strategy, you have options within the federal government. The first one is an income-driven repayment. I'll get into the weeds a little bit on that more but for those that are graduating in the last maybe 4 or 5 years, this year included, there's what's called the revised pay-as-you-earn plan or the pay-as-you-earn plan. I'll talk more about those in a minute. You also have, obviously, on an income-driven repayment plan, if you're going into public health, you'll have access to the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program if you're going to be working at a federally qualified health clinic. Depending on the size of your loans, if you don't want to get on an income-driven repayment plan, you might just stay into either what's called a standard or a graduated plan within the federal program. So as you are probably aware, I think most everybody on the call tonight is graduated, but if you recall, when you graduated, you had a 6-month grace period where you didn't have to make any student loan payments, and that's still in effect. If you don't do anything, if you make no decision during your 6-month grace period, you will automatically default into a 10-year standard repayment. So if you got $400,000 in student loans, that's like a $3,800 a month payment. So towards November and December of each year, I get a lot of phone calls and emails from students that graduated in May or June. They ran out their 6-month grace period and they just got a notice from their loan servicer that their $3,800 payment is due, December 14th or something. And they don't want to swing a $3,800 a month payment. So they give us a call to figure out, what options are available to them. So you've got the two programs through the federal, really. You got the income-driven repayment and then kind of the standard graduated payments. And then you also could do a private refinance. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. Private refinance, there's many lenders out there. They offer variable and fixed rates and so forth. So one of the things that I always encourage my listeners that are in dental school or in residency is to make sure that they file a federal tax return, even if they are not earning any income. It's not going to have a negative impact on anything that they might be doing with their parents' tax return. And Art can probably back me up on that. But if they're, if you're a 4th-year dental student, chances are you've had little to no income. But what happens is when you go to establish, for example, an income-driven repayment plan, we can use your 2020 tax return. Say you're graduating in 2021. And you file the 2020 tax return by May 17th of this year. We can use that 2020 tax return to establish the first 12 months of payments on an income-driven repayment plan. So let's say they signed a contract for $150,000. Instead of using $150,000, to establish the first 12 months of payments, which would be about a $900 a month payment, we can use their 2020 tax return with zero income, and they won't even have to make a payment their first 12 months out of school. And so that gives them some breathing room to build up their emergency savings fund, to pay for their relocation, to upgrade their transportation if they've been driving a jalopy, through dental school. So anyway, always important to file a tax return while you're in school or residency, even if it's zero income. So let me talk a little bit about income-driven repayment plans, and then maybe that'll be a good place to stop if there's any questions on anything I've covered so far. So income-driven repayment plans, there are 4 federal income-driven repayment plans. You can see them on the screen. Don't worry about the bottom 2. The one on the bottom right, income-based repayment, is really not used any longer. Some of you, if you graduated 8-10 years ago, you might be on that plan, but for recent graduates, that is a plan that's no longer used. Income contingent repayment, that's for parents that have taken out loans and through the federal program, Parent Plus loans. Maybe some of you have some of those if you got kids in graduate school right now. But the real focus is on those 2 at the top, pay as you earn and revised pay as you earn. So here's how an income-driven repayment plan works. So an income-driven repayment plan is essentially 10% of your discretionary income, and you can stay on the plan for as long as 20 or 25 years. Now, I've only recommended that a couple of times. I'm not a believer in, you graduate with $350,000, $400,000 in student loan debt. You stretch that out over 20 or 25 years, you just spent $600,000, $700,000, $800,000 to go to dental school. I think that's ridiculous. So I do not recommend that. It's I think I won't even give you a number, but less than 5 times in the work that I've done in the last 7 years have I recommended anyone get on an income-driven repayment plan for 20 or 25 years. My personal goal as a wealth advisor for my clients is to help them put together a plan that's going to pay off their student loans somewhere in the 7-12 year range. Somewhere in that range, I think, is a reasonable amount of time to get those loans paid off. And they can do it if they're not a spendthrift, if they can save money for retirement, they can have a nice lifestyle, and they can also pay off their student loan debt. And so that we help them do that. So let me talk a little bit about the 2 main plans. Well, let me back up one second. So on an income-driven repayment plan, you have to recertify your income on an annual basis. So as I gave you an example of somebody graduating this year, they had zero income in 2020. So we can use a zero income tax return to establish the first 12 months of payments. The second 12 months, they graduated in May or June. So they really only had 6 months of income, that first calendar year. And then that third year, or that next 12 months, that's going to be the first 12-month period that we're going to actually use a full year of income. So a lot of times I only put a client, or recommend that clients get on income-driven repayment for maybe 2 or 3 years. And then we'll do a pivot to a private refinance. And, I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute, but I'm not an advocate for a 20 or 25 year repayment. That's too long and too expensive. So pay as you earn, that's a pretty popular plan for married couples. If you're looking to have a low or a lower monthly payment on your student loans, and you do not want your spouse's income to be considered in the calculation, then you would get on pay as you earn. Pay as you earn allows, you can file your taxes separately, and when it's looking at your 10% of discretionary income, they're only going to look at your income. So I'll use that as an example. So for example, let's say you're a dentist, your spouse has been working while you're through dental school, your spouse makes $150,000, you're coming out of dental school, you didn't have any income during dental school, so then that last year of dental school, you file your taxes separately, your spouse files taxes, you file a tax return, and then we would use your tax return to establish the first 12 months of payments. You wouldn't even have payments the first 12 months because you had no income during dental school. So that's one way you can use pay as you earn. The other way we use pay as you earn is for a married couple and somebody's going into public health. They're going to be on that plan for 10 years. We only want to look at their income to establish the payments because we want to have the lowest payment possible during that 10 years because we want Uncle Sam to forgive as much as possible at the end of the 10 years. So pay as you earn would be the strategy that we would use in that scenario. Revised pay as you earn works really good for single folks. So you're a graduate, you're not married yet, and you had no income maybe, or you had a little bit of income your last year. I always use revised pay as you earn for single folks in residency. They're getting paid a little bit of income, but not much. And the nice thing about revised pay as you earn is it provides a very significant interest subsidy on the portion of unsubsidized loans. So probably if you're a dentist and you took on some federal student loans while you're in school, average is $350,000. Over 95% of those loans are most likely unsubsidized loans. Revised pay as you earn offers up to a 50% subsidy. What I mean by that is if your interest is $1,500 a month, Uncle Sam will pick up maybe as much as $750 of that. So instead of you graduating and having an effective interest rate on your student loans of 6.5% when interest gets turned back on October 1st, maybe that first 12 months out of school or residency, if you didn't have much income, maybe your effective rate is going to be more like 3.5%. So that is one of those gold nuggets. When I do presentations to schools, I've highlighted some things in gold. That's one of my gold nuggets or gold plated ideas, is to really understand revised pay as you earn and whether or not you qualify for any interest subsidy. Obviously, for those clients that hire us, we help them figure that out. Art, is there any questions out there for me? I'll stop right here and take a couple of questions on income-driven repayment if anybody's got any questions.
No, you have been so crystal clear, and this is great because I think I get a lot of questions about all this. I like that we don't have any questions. So folks, if you do, please put them in there and we'll get them answered for you. But like you said, the income-based repayment is basically there to get you off the ground, get you started until your real career is going. But yeah, to do that for 10 or 15 or 20 years makes no sense. That's what you're saying, right?
Excuse me, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I
Now
agree.
I can make a spreadsheet, tell you anything you want to hear, right?
Can't we all? That's right.
So there are some, I use the word advisors loosely in this context, but there are some advisors that is a primary strategy for them. And I'll debunk that strategy here in a few minutes. So we got about 15 minutes left. Is that right?
No, we can go for, no, we go till, Amanda, we go till 8, right? If we need it.
Correct. And a question did just come
Yeah,
in.
let me pop into the question here and see.
We're getting to you, Dennis. We're coming for you.
Okay, Dan, yeah. President Biden recently passed student loan forgiveness to be tax-free for a limited time. Due to this, is it better to stay on repay and hope for the bubble to pop and get our loans forgiven then?
Can you read
Yeah,
read that one more time?
Sure. President Biden passed student loan forgiveness as being tax-free for a limited time. So the forgiveness is tax-free for a limited time. Due to this, is it better to stay on the repay plan? And he's saying hope for the bubble to pop and get our loans forgiven. So I'm not really sure I understand it.
Yeah. So here's my thoughts. Okay. When they talk about student loan relief, and this is my opinion. Okay. Again, anybody with 350, 400,000 in student loans over the last year and a half, they've already had $32,000, $40,000 somewhere in there in terms of forgiveness. If they're talking about forgiving principal, okay, those ideas, they're not going to come up with another $1.7 trillion. I think there will be a revolt. What about all the dentists that have been paying off their student loans for the last 10 years? I don't think that there's going to be much of an effort to forgive student loans on income earners that are generating $200,000-$300,000 of income.
And I would agree with you. I mean, the amount of money and what that would do to the banking system would be very dangerous. They are talking about, President Biden is talking about a proposal, I believe, Mark, to pay for community college for people going forward for a year or two. I think there's something that he's brought up about that.
Yes. And, that's fantastic. And, I got my education paid for by the GI Bill. So there's been all kinds of opportunities out there for people to go into public health and there's state scholarships and those types of things. But I think if you're going to hold your breath and wait for your principal on your student loans to be forgiven, I think you're going to run out of oxygen before that happens.
I would agree.
Any other?
So no, that's the only question for now.
Okay.
And I'll pop in. There are some more.
Okay, fantastic. So anyway, I wanted to talk a little bit about public service loan forgiveness now. Probably maybe 20% of my clients that I work with are enrolled in public service loan forgiveness. So that's both, dental and medical. A very large percentage of doctors, obviously, go to work at a federally qualified facility. And I think I saw something 40 or 45% of medical doctors are enrolled in public service loan forgiveness after graduation and from medical school and residency. Actually, while in residency, I've got clients on public service loan forgiveness while they're in residency. And so for public service loan forgiveness, you have to work in a federally qualified clinic that has to serve a certain demographic. And you make 120 qualifying payments every year. You have to submit what's called an employer certification form that gets filed with your loan servicer. Fed Loan Servicing is the loan servicer that takes care of all public service loan forgiveness. So you are enrolled in an income-driven repayment plan. You are making your monthly payment on your income-driven repayment plan. Every year as your income goes up, you are recertifying your income and you are, having your employer fill that employer certification form. So one of the things that we do in our planning is that we always try to have some flexibility. So even though somebody graduates from dental school and maybe they take their first job in public health and they say that's the path they're going to go, no 27-year-old knows what they're going to be doing 10 years from now, right? So so what we try to do is help them build a plan that allows for some flexibility. And let me explain what I mean by that. So let's say somebody's going on to public health and for some reason, they don't like it. Okay. So while you're on income-driven repayment plan, in the first few years of that strategy, you're making a very small payment. And that payment, if you got $400,000 or $500,000 in student loans, isn't even covering the interest that's accruing on those loans. So you go into public health for 4 years and decide to get out, your student loan balance is much higher than the day you graduated from dental school. So what we always do is we have a budget item and we calculate for the client each year how much their student loan balance is growing while they're in public health. And so let's say that they're making a $1,500 a month payment, but their student loans are growing by $2,000 a month. So there's a $500 gap there. And so we will have them save $500 a month. And so I've got clients that have been in public health for 6-7 years now, and they might have an investment account that's got, $50,000, $70,000 in it. And because their student loan balance is $50,000 to $70,000 higher than when they graduated. Now, if they keep trucking along and they come to that 10 years and they have it all forgiven, fantastic. They're going to have an investment account that's got another $100,000 or so in it. But if they're in public health and 4 years into the gig, they run into Dr. Smith at the grocery store. Dr. Smith says, "Hey, I heard good things about you. You're doing good things at the public health clinic. I'm getting ready to retire. I'd like to talk to you about buying my practice." So you're 4 years into public health. You graduated with $400,000 in student loan debt. Now you got $500,000. Do you want to step away from that public health job with $100,000 more in student loans? Maybe you do, maybe you don't. But if you've spent saving the difference in the first 4 to 5 years of public health, and you got $100,000 in the bank or in an investment account with me, then that decision to talk to Dr. Smith about his practice becomes a lot easier. And if you have to leave public health, you're not in a worse financial position than you were the day you graduated from dental school. So those are the kind of things that we try to, help our clients with, because they may not be seeing, their financial planning the way I look at it, or the way it may turn out over the next number of years. So that was just a little story on that. There's a number of different, forgiveness programs out there. National Health Service Corps, Students to Service Scholarship Programs, $120,000 for 3 years of public health. I was in the Air Force. My daughter is a dental assistant in the Air Force right now, one of my daughters. And so I've got the Air Force logo there. Military programs have great programs. I've got a client who's a dentist in the Air Force. She's getting out in September. They're going to get a $1.5 million loan to build a practice just outside of Tampa. Military is a great place to go for a few years, and they have a nice program for student loan forgiveness. And then there's other state programs, Indian Health Services. I've got clients that work on Native American reservations, and they've got great programs for student loan forgiveness as well. So lots of opportunities out there. Just for those people that are graduates or in residency, I just encourage them to do their homework and see if any of these programs work for them. Okay, private refinancing. There's millions and millions of dollars of advertising, SoFi, and they're one of the big ones, and there's a number of others that are running ads all the time. I get Facebook feeds all the time from companies, because I'm always typing in student loan stuff, and so Mr. Zuckerberg has got me got his algorithm figured out for me, so I get a lot of stuff on student loans to my Facebook page. I'm 53 years old, but anyway, long story short, I think that people generally coming out of school, many people refinance their student loans too early. And as Art alluded to earlier, I think income-driven repayment is kind of a great student loan repayment strategy, kind of with training wheels. It gets folks out, helps them with their cash flow for the first couple of years, and if they qualify for that revised pay-as-you-earn interest subsidy, they got an interest rate at effective interest rate 3.25%, 3.5%. So they're not going to find a private lender that's going to do much better than that, even with interest rates as low as they are now. Now, there are some situations where I do think doing a private refinance right out of school makes sense. So, for example, if you've got some private loans already, so if you took out some Sallie Mae loans, or maybe Discover or Wells Fargo or some of those other private lenders, I visited with somebody last week that had a private loan at 11%. Well, as soon as she gets her first pay stub, we're going to be, refinancing that loan with a private lender, and we'll probably get somewhere in the 4 to 4.5% range based on rates today. If you got any associates that work in your office, or maybe you were a foreign student and you didn't have access to federal student loans, so maybe you had to fund your entire college, dental school through private lending, probably at higher interest rates, and maybe a private refinance once you start generating some income is going to be a very good idea. So those are, or if maybe you got a small student loan balance, maybe your parents helped you out, or you went to a state school out here in the Midwest and you came out with maybe $150,000 of student loan debt. Maybe you had a side gig, or your parents helped you out a little bit, and maybe it makes sense to do a private refinance. But for the bulk of graduates coming out with $350,000, $400,000, $500,000 in student loan debt, I'm not a big fan of doing a private refinance right out of school. And then obviously the last year and a half, that was a really bad decision, because there's been no interest and no payments required since March 13th of 2020. And think of the thousands and thousands of dollars saved, and the thousands and thousands of dollars paid for people that had refinanced. And a lot of my first and second year dental clients were out of work for 8 to 12 weeks. And if they had a private refinance, had been paying, they had to pay their loan payments throughout all of that. So anyway, I just say, don't rush to refinance. Make lenders compete for your business. That's one of the things that we help with. I'll usually have my clients fill out this is all done online. Have them go to credible.com. And then one of the other lenders that's not on credible.com is Laurel Road. They do a lot of dental refinancing loans and other healthcare professionals, but I'm focused on dental. And so I'll have my clients fill out a profile on credible.com as well as on Laurel Road. And then once they get offers, let's say they get an offer from, I don't know, First Citizen gives them an offer for 4.5%, and then Laurel Road gives them an offer at 4.25%. So we'll take a screenshot of the offer from Laurel Road at 4.25%, and we'll send that back through the Credible portal to First Citizen and say, Laurel Road gave us an offer at 4.25%. You got 48 hours to beat that. And let's say First Citizen comes back with an offer at 4.15. We'll take a screenshot of that, send that to Laurel Road and say, First Citizen came back with a rate at 4.15. You got 48 hours to beat that. And we'll play that game for a little bit. Now, 2 or 3 years ago, we could do that for a week or two and get anywhere from 3/4 to 1 full percentage point knocked off the loans. Now, interest rates have come down quite a bit in the last couple of years, so there's not quite a margin there, but you can get we've been able to get a 0.5% knocked off just by playing that game a little bit. 0.5% on 400,000 over the next 10 years, that's real money. And I encourage people, don't be fooled by promos. This time of the year, some of these lenders start saying, we'll give you a $500 credit if you sign up with us. Well, $500 is $500, but on a $500,000 loan, you'd rather have a 0.25% lower interest rate, right? That's over $1,000 of savings just in year one. So these are some of the things that we help our clients with. And I just tell them, don't rush to refinance. Don't be fooled by promos. Make them compete for your business and crunch the numbers. Art, you're on mute.
Sorry.
Art, there you go.
Yeah, you think I've never done a webinar before, right? Okay. Next question. I started working at a dental clinic this year. I am on an income-based repayment plan. They have a particular loan servicer, but in order, I'm going to leave names out of this unless you need the names. But in order to qualify for PSLF, I will need to switch to federal loans. Should I switch my loan servicer immediately? What are the steps to do this?
Okay. So yeah, if you're going to apply for public service loan forgiveness, you don't have an option. You have to change your loan servicer to Fed loan servicing. So what you would do, if you're already on an income-driven repayment plan, you have not yet signed up for public service loan forgiveness then, I'm guessing, because there's a box that you can check when you first apply for income-driven repayment that says you're working in a public clinic, and it automatically moves your loans over to Fed loan servicing. So if you haven't done that, you'll have to go into your studentaid.gov account and I would say reapply for an income-driven repayment plan, and then switch over to Fed loan servicing.
Mark, that's something that you could help the nice doctor with and walk them through the steps, I would assume.
Yes, yeah, they can go to we'll give them my contact information, and if they want to reach out to me, I can walk them.
We'll put that up at the end of the webinar too. So okay, we're 2 for 2. So continue.
Okay. So so these are some of the primary lenders. These are some of the primary lenders that are out there. This is not an exhaustive list. There's probably another dozen active private financiers in that space. But again, when you're looking for a private lender, what you're really just looking for is the lowest interest rate over the term for the dollar amount that you can afford to pay each month. Okay. Talk a little bit about strategies. So we do offer a free 30-minute consultation. So if anybody's got questions on a personal nature that they don't want to discuss during the webinar tonight, you can just go to our website, studentloansrx.com. Up in the top right-hand corner of the homepage is a green button. It just says free consult. Click on that. We have a very, very, very short questionnaire. Answer a few questions, click the submit button, and we'll get a 30-minute Zoom session set up. So when somebody schedules a consult with me coming right out of school or residency, oftentimes they fall into one of these 3 categories. Now, everybody's situation is a little bit different, but keep in mind, they're 27 to 35 years old is kind of the range of age coming out of dental school or residency for dental professionals. And so a very popular comment is, hey, Mark, I hate having this much student loan debt. I want to pay it off as quickly as possible. So what would a repayment strategy look like for that? So typically I would oftentimes get them enrolled in an income-driven repayment plan for a year or 2. Again, if they qualify for that interest subsidy through revised pay-as-you-earn, there's no reason to pay the full interest rate when Uncle Sam's going to pick up half of it for the first year. So we will work on things like emergency savings, funding their Roth IRA, having Uncle Sam pick up half their interest the first year. And then we might refinance in maybe year 2 or 3. We're going to focus on debt repayment in 4 to 6 years. every year I've got a handful of clients that say, hey, I'm moving back home with mom and dad, and I'm going to knock out this student loan debt. And so what are some things that people would have to do to pay off, 300,000-400,000 in student loan debt in 4 to 6 years? Well, they're probably going to delay a home purchase. They're probably not going to go out and sign a, $700 a month lease on a new Audi or, an F-150. Out there in California, you guys drive Audis. Out here, we drive F-150 Fords. But no, there's a few Audis out here too. And they're probably going to delay purchasing a practice for maybe a couple of years. And so they're making some consumer purchase sacrifices to knock that debt out as quickly as possible. And a lot of this has to just do with culture. Okay. People grow up with different attitudes on money. One of the first questions I ask someone, when they sign our planning agreement, I say, tell me about your relationship with money. What's your history with money? What did you observe that your parents did with money? What did they teach you about money? What did you like observing how they handled money? What don't you like about what your parents did with money? So everybody kind of comes to me with some kind of a money history, and it's important for me to understand what that is, because sometimes my recommendations are not always well received if I don't understand kind of where they're coming from. Second popular strategy is, and I really like this one for obvious reasons, because I'm a wealth manager and practice owners typically make a lot more than associates. And so somebody comes to me and says, I want to be a practice owner. What do I need to do to get myself in shape to be a practice owner? So in that situation, again, if they qualify for that interest subsidy on revised pay as you earn, we'd probably get on an income-driven repayment plan, and we might stay on an income-driven repayment plan until we get a practice loan. So let me talk a little bit about how banks look at student loans. So banks don't really care, and I've had bankers tell me this, and I've seen the numbers from clients that have gone on to get a loan to buy practices. Banks really don't care how much you have in student loans. Okay, what they care about is what your monthly payment is. So if you take your loans and pull them out and do a private refinance out of the federal government, that's just like any other consumer loan, right? You got to make that payment every month, come hell or high water. If you got $300,000-$400,000 in student loan debt, you're looking at maybe a $3,500 a month payment. If you stay in the federal program and get on an income-driven repayment plan, you can actually turn off your payments for up to 3 years on an income-driven repayment plan. Now, interest is going to be accruing under normal circumstances. Obviously, we're in the COVID relief era right now, so that's not the case. But effective October 1st, when interest gets turned back on, okay, you can actually turn off an income-driven repayment plan. So the bank just wants to know that they're going to get paid. And they want to see somewhere between 5 to 10% liquidity oftentimes to give a loan. So if somebody's going in to get a $500,000 loan from the bank to buy a practice, I know that doesn't buy you much of a practice in California, but let's say it's $1 million. Okay, they're going to want to see somewhere between $50,000 and $100,000 of liquidity. Now, how are you going to be able to come up with $50,000 to $100,000 of liquidity if you're making a $3,500 a month student loan payment right out of school? So in those first 3-4 years out of school, if you're on the way to be a practice owner, we typically recommend staying on an income-driven repayment plan and socking away as much money as you possibly can so that you can have that liquidity that the bank's going to want to see. And again, you might delay a home purchase and a new car. And I got to tell you, I visit a lot of people and I do a lot of financial plans each year. And it just amazes me how much money people spend on automobiles. I know obviously it's a big business and who doesn't like having a new car, but I'll tell you what, the average payment on a car in America is $400 a month. $400 over 20 years is $200,000 at a 7% interest rate. So I always tell my graduates, I said, you probably need to upgrade your transportation. but go buy a 6 or 7-year-old car with 75,000 miles on it. It'll feel a lot better than the clunker you've been driving around probably in dental school, although there's a lot of nice cars being driven around in dental school too. I just say, what would you rather be? Do you want to be a practice owner, or do you want to be an automobile? Do you want to drive a new car? And anyway, Art has got some words of wisdom. Turn your mute off, Art.
Sorry about that. I don't have any other questions from our participants, but I do want to comment on that. You hit a subject that's near and dear to my heart. I am one who I teach my clients, like you do, is that the book The Millionaire Next Door is a wonderful book, and a car is something in my mind to get you from point A to point B. I am going to be 62 years old in August, and I have owned 4 automobiles since I graduated Long Beach State University at the age of 20. And that is by choice. And I drive it. My philosophy, Mark, I say you buy a nice car, because doctors, you've earned the right to own a nice car. Okay. And everybody's definition of a nice car is, I have a nice car. I have a 2007 model car. It has 212,000 miles on it. I maintain it to the nines. It runs perfectly. My auto mechanic said to me, it will run, Art, until it's 300,000 miles. And you know what, guys? I don't have $1,000 or $1,500 a month car payment, which is money, Mark, that they can take and pay down their student loan debt, right?
Absolutely.
So I just wanted to make that point that Mark is absolutely right, folks, is that, if you want to buy a nice house, that's great. You want to take a nice trip because you work really hard, you've earned it. I don't see why you shouldn't own a nice car, but you don't need a $150,000 car to get you from your house to the office. That's my opinion. You may disagree with me, but there's a lot of other things that when you turn 60 years old and your arm starts to hurt, gee, I wish I would have saved that money for retirement or my kids' college. And so I just wanted to jump in and agree with you, which I'm required by law to agree with you, right?
We appreciate it.
So, all right, I'll let you get back to it.
No problem. Okay. And so then the third strategy that a lot of people like is the, what I call it, the current lifestyle strategy. And this is where someone says, Mark, I'd like to own a practice someday, but it's not a priority. I'm getting married next year. We are buying a house, and I've already bought the new car. So now what do I need to do to tackle my student loan debt? And, it's interesting, and I don't have any hard numbers on it, but I'll bet you it divvies up pretty close to 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. It kind of is funny how it works out that way, but that's really the way it is. So anyway, those are the 3 strategies basically, or the 3 ideas that people come to me with kind of how they want to tackle their student loans. And then we put a plan together based on their income and their family situation and so forth. I want to talk about this strategy that there's been a lot of articles on it. Again, I use the word advisor loosely. Some people that are advisors are licensed, some people are not. Obviously, being licensed doesn't necessarily mean you always give great advice. So I want to talk about what's called the tax bomb strategy. So let me lay this up for you. So what this strategy says or suggests is that you get on an income-driven repayment plan for 20 or 25 years. So if you remember, the pay-as-you-earn is a 20-year repayment, and revised pay-as-you-earn, you can stretch it out as long as 25 years. So you get on a 20 or 25-year income-driven repayment plan. Obviously, you start out with very low payments, maybe even 0 payments for the first year if you had no income your last year of dental school. Your income goes up every year. You have to recertify. So as your income goes up, your payment goes up. But the idea is if you got a lot of student loan debt, you just stretch that out to 20 or 25 years. And whatever's left over at the end Uncle Sam forgives, but you pay taxes on it. You pay taxes on the forgiveness. Now, as your payments are low at the front end, theoretically, you've got this extra cash flow to invest. And so you're investing this cash flow you have a low student loan payment, you're investing the difference. And at the end of that 20 years, you got this great big investment account. So it's going to be very easy to write out a check to pay for those additional taxes that are due. So let's fast forward 20 years. So what's a dentist going to be making in 20 years? Inflation at 3%. Let's say the average dentist is making $500,000 in 20 years, okay? And let's say they had $200,000 of student loan debt forgiven. They're going to have to pay taxes on that. So 20 years from now, 2041, they're going to pay taxes on $700,000 of income. Well, that's the strategy. But let me tell you why I don't like this. First of all, most of the people that are advocating for this, they're young. Maybe they haven't maybe life hasn't thrown too many curveballs at them yet. And they're great with spreadsheets. Okay. I can make a spreadsheet do wonderful things because there's about 6 or 7 variables here for this strategy to work out. And if each one of those things doesn't work out almost perfectly, this is a really bad strategy. So let me just give you the very first bomb in the tax bomb strategy. And I've never seen this illustrated on a spreadsheet by anyone who advocates this strategy. So in America, unfortunately, about 50% of us go through divorces. Okay. So let's say you're a dentist, you graduate, get married, your spouse is not a dentist. You start a practice maybe 4 or 5 years, or you buy into a practice 4 or 5 years out of school. Your marriage doesn't work out. Maybe you're 10 or 12 years out of dental school. So what happens there? So you've been on this income-driven repayment plan for 10 years. Your student loan balance is higher than the day you graduated, oftentimes, or it certainly isn't any lower because you didn't make hardly any payments. Your payments maybe didn't even cover the interest for the first 5 or 6 years. So you got a larger student loan balance. So what happens in divorce court? Is the judge splitting your student loan balance between you and your spouse? Certainly not. Okay, what's happening to your practice? Well, you're walking down to the bank to ask for a loan to buy your ex-spouse or your soon-to-be ex-spouse out of your practice, because chances are, if you live in a marital property state, your spouse is half owner in your share of the practice. So there's a 50-50 chance that anybody on this call that went down this road with the tax bomb strategy is going to have that conversation in divorce court. So you got a larger student loan balance than the day you graduated. You're having to take out a loan to buy your spouse out of your practice. You're going to be paying maybe child support and alimony. So how did that work out? Wouldn't you have rather have paid off a significant portion of your student loan debt with marital assets those first 10 years out of dental school? So that's one curveball life throws at you, and it's about a 50-50 proposition right now for most of Americans. You're betting on future tax rates. You're betting on the success of your business. You're betting on your health. You've got all these variables that are very, very difficult to quantify on a spreadsheet. But if I just throw in some tax rate and assume you're going to stay healthy, you're going to make a bunch of money, and the stock market. Now, here's the other thing. This is where I think I've got the most credibility on saying that this is a very bad idea. Okay, I've been in the investment business 30 years. Let me tell you, the stock market doesn't always go up. Okay, from 1964 to 1981, that's a 17-year period of time. From 1964 to 1981, the Dow Jones Industrial, which was the major benchmark at that time, nobody talked about the S&P 500. It was the Dow Jones. The Dow Jones was 1,000 points at the beginning of 1964, and it was 1,000 points at the beginning of 1981. The market went virtually nowhere for 17 years. Now, for those of you on the call, a little bit older, have some history on interest rates. Obviously, interest rates went up over that period of time and, peaked in the early 80s. And now we're at all-time lows. But I'm not saying interest rates are going back up to any significant levels like that again, but they could. And I would say that you can't guarantee that over any 17-year or 20-year period of time that the market is 100% guaranteed to go up. It doesn't happen. There's one 17-year period right there in the modern era when it didn't happen. So I just think this is a really bad idea. I think it's a really bad cultural idea that you go to college, get a professional degree, and you pay $400,000 or $500,000 for it. And this strategy suggests that really you should pay $800,000 to go to dental school. I think it's a horrible idea. And I don't care what they say on their spreadsheet. There's too many curveballs that life throws at you any one of those curveballs makes this not only be a tax bomb, but a financial and personal bomb. I was in the military. I was taught to avoid bombs whenever possible. And so I'm going to stick to that training and tell you this is a bad idea. Okay. Enough on that. What are some additional things that you're going to have to do to round out your financial plan? Disability insurance. So for a graduate that's coming out of dental school, maybe they're going to earn $120,000. Hopefully a little more than that. I think the average is about 135, 140 for a first-year dentist now. You're going to want some disability insurance. Could be provided through your employer. Some of it, a lot of the DSOs and larger group practices will provide a group disability benefit. Up to 60% of your income, maybe up to $7,000, $8,000, $10,000 a month of benefit. When the employer pays for it, it's taxable when it's paid out as a benefit. When you purchase it as an individual, whatever benefits paid out if you become disabled is tax-free. Disability insurance is a foundational insurance. I have some clients say, well, I don't think I need any of that. I'm very healthy. And I'm saying, listen, we're not protecting your health today. We're protecting your health to age 65 and your income. If you become disabled, a first-year dentist is generally going to be eligible for about $5,000 a monthly benefit. You stretch that out over age 65 with a cost of living rider on there, that's almost $4 million of income. And what are they going to pay? $120 a month to have a $4 million risk management policy. So disability insurance is really important. I know an orthodontist who I think he was around 48, 49 years old, started getting a tremor in his hand. And after 2 years could no longer, he was a part owner in a 6 or 7 group practice. And fortunately, he had plenty of disability insurance. He's now collecting, I think, roughly $20,000 a month in tax-free disability insurance. And he's a faculty member at a residency program. And if it wasn't for that disability insurance, he'd be up the creek. And so really important. Art's got some words of wisdom. Turn on your mic.
No, you have the words of wisdom that I should turn my mic on. I want to make a comment about what Mark is saying on disability insurance. I have been I work with a couple of attorneys in Southern California who they devote their life to helping dentists fight the insurance companies. Because remember, folks, insurance companies have 2 objectives when it comes to any type of insurance. Let's just say disability. Objective number 1, collect as much premium from you as they possibly can. Objective number 2, pay out as little in benefit as they possibly can. If those of you who have disability policies, you should read them. The word gobbledygook doesn't do it justice. I have been involved in court proceedings and working with these attorneys to help. So if any of you have disability insurance and you are thinking about the fact that you may need to file a claim, do not call the insurance company, because they're going to start asking you a bunch of questions on a recorded line that says, oh, well, what are your hobbies, doctor? Oh, I ride horses, I play golf. and the next thing you know, you're denied for a claim. So these insurance companies are very smart, and disability insurance is so critical. And if you pay it with after-tax dollars, which most of you should be doing anyway, you get to receive it tax-free. So that $4 million that Mark was talking about. So, you know, for any of you to think, I don't need it, I'm invincible, I'm good enough, unless you've got a lot of money saved or parents that are very wealthy that are going to take care of you, you need this. And if you do feel like you need to file a claim, you know, give Mark or I a call and we'll point you to somebody who will assist you in filling out the forms and contacting the insurance company. Okay.
Yep, good stuff. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. You know, so what are some of the insurances? Obviously, we'll talk about investment planning and estate planning, and then we'll finish up for the night. So a little bit on insurance planning. So disability insurance, obviously the purpose of that is to protect your primary wealth generator, which is your income. You know, I don't know what the average dentist makes over their career, but starting out, you know, a first-year dentist is going to get roughly $4 million of coverage. That's $5,000 a month until age 65. So you guys are going to generate a lot of income over your careers. A couple of key things that you need to understand about, and I'm an independent insurance agent. I provide disability and life insurance to my clients. You know, there are what I would consider good contracts out there, and there's contracts out there that aren't so good. And obviously they're priced accordingly. So what I like to tell a young dentist who, you know, has been living on ramen noodles for, you know, 4 years in dental school and is going to get their first paycheck. And my recommendation is to, you know, get a disability policy. It's going to cost $120 a month. I mean, they look at me sometimes cross-eyed, you know, they don't want to spend $120 a month on, or $150 a month on disability insurance. And because they think they're invincible. And I say, well, listen, this is one of the most important insurances you're going to get. I say like, you know, don't pay your car insurance, get your disability insurance paid first. You know, you're much more, you know, you're protecting $4 million of an income stream. Nobody's going to sue you for $4 million as a first-year dentist if you get in a car accident, you know? So I think you should have both. You should have both. But the point is that disability insurance is extremely important. There's what's called own occupation. And that is a feature in a contract that basically says if you become disabled and you cannot perform the functions of a dentist, that you're going to get your full benefit. If the policy doesn't have a true own occupation provision, they can ask you to go find a job. And when you find a job waving at people as they walk into Walmart, they'll reassess the benefit that they're going to pay you commensurate to what your income is. So, for example, this orthodontist who's now a faculty member teaching at a residency program, he's getting his full monthly disability benefit tax-free, and he's getting paid probably a low six-figure income as a faculty member at a residency program. You also want to have a policy that includes specialty language. If you guys develop any specialties in implants or pediatrics or Invisalign, and I don't know what health condition would pop up to where you could be a dentist, but you couldn't do Invisalign. I can't think of one right now, but specialty language means if you've created any specialty in your practice, that you would also get that graded versus level premium. You know, you can start out with a fixed cost, which is going to be probably 60-70% higher, or you can get into a policy for a lower cost with a graded premium. Student loan rider. A lot of policies will, not a lot, there's about 4 or 5 carriers that offer what's called a student loan rider. So that means as you come out of school with $350,000, $400,000, $500,000 in student loan debt, you can get an extra up to $2,000 of monthly benefit if you became disabled, and they'll make your payment, your student loan payment, within the first 10 years of the contract. That rider falls off after 10 years. And so disability insurance, super important. This is not one area where you want to go with the low cost provider. You want to find the best contract available in the marketplace today. And, if you think the difference is going to be 40, maybe $50 a month starting out, you want the best contract, make it up on your investment selection, Art, you have anything else?
Yeah, we have another question from one of our participants. And the question is, and I want to get to it before you move away from disability insurance. The question is, what options do you have if you can't get disability insurance, or if you're unable to increase your current disability insurance?
Okay. So sounds like there might be a health issue or something like that. One option is to go work for a DSO that offers, or a large group practice that offers group disability insurance. Oftentimes, if there's a group plan that's available, you would be able to get a certain amount of group coverage as being part of the group. You might check into an association plan. So the American Dental Association, or I think the California Dental Association might have a group plan.
Yeah, we have in California, we have what's called TDIC, the Dentist Insurance Company. I know for life insurance, they have Great West Life. I don't remember who does the disability coverage. The association's coverages have been around for literally almost 100 years. So TDIC would be an option. I have folks that in California, but and I'm sure Mark can take a look at what you got going on. You're an independent insurance agent,
Yeah,
Mark?
I'm an independent insurance agent. I'm licensed in California. And
oh, you are? Okay. So I would
have,
start with Mark and see, and then
we can take a look to help you. But sometimes individual policies are not available, and for whatever reason, there are some high cost. Everybody's heard of Lloyd's of London, right? Where they insure everything. There are companies like that also do short-term disability, so 5-year plans. They're a little bit pricey, but give us a call. We'll see if we can help you out. But typically, if somebody cannot get an individual policy, I usually steer them towards getting a job at a group public health clinic, a DSO, or a large group practice where there's a group plan that's available. Okay. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on life insurance, but typically with a dentist coming out of school with $400,000 or $500,000 of student loan debt, I'm not selling them a cash value life insurance policy for $4,000 a year. Okay. We're looking at a term policy that can get them the amount of life insurance coverage that they need at the lowest possible price. Oftentimes the sweet spot is in that maybe 20-year term policy. And, visiting with a young lady today, 27 years old, $1 million term policy is going to cost her about $40 a month. And so that to me is a pretty good option to get some life insurance, and especially in those first 2-3 years out of school when she's single, maybe she gets married, doesn't have any kids yet. I'm a big believer in buy term, and when they get the student loans paid off or paid down significantly, they get their practice, they're maxing out their Roths, their 401k plans, and they come to me and they got an extra $3,000-$4,000 a monthly income they don't know what to do with. Maybe we'll talk about a cash value life policy at that time. But I'd rather buy stock in 100 different companies than put money in a cash value life insurance policy today with interest rates at the levels they are now. So anyway, malpractice liability, professional liability malpractice. I don't offer that. Obviously, you guys know you have to have it, and there's can be provided through the employer. You can buy individual policies. I think it's kind of neat that a lot of the plans that are out there don't charge first-year dentists much to get that coverage. I had someone today tell me that their first year of malpractice insurance cost them $50, and then it went up to like $1,000 next year or something. So that's kind of nice that they work with those graduates right out of school. Investment planning, I kind of think that, there's a lot of different investments we can make. Finding the right balance is really important, and that's what we try to do. I believe taking a balanced approach towards investing is critical, because not everything is not always working at the same time. But, for most people coming out of school, they're going to start families, have kids. And so I call it lifestyle planning. How big should the house be? How much do I need to spend on my first home? I saw a statistic, I think it was the 1960s, the average square footage of a house was 1,200 square feet. In 2010, that had doubled to over to 2,500 square feet. The number of kids in the house in the 1960 was like 3.5, and the number of kids in the house in 2010 was like 1.5. So we've doubled the size of our houses and we've cut the number of children in half. So I'm not sure how that math works out. But on my street, we have a lot of 2-story, 4-bedroom homes, and most people on my street can't park their cars in their 2-car garages because they got their garages filled up with stuff too. So it's kind of crazy to me. But I try to counsel my clients that, a home is a place to live, but generally, unless you're you guys are in California, so housing prices have gone up quite a bit. It's a little bit different, but out here in the Midwest, average home values appreciate on the average around 3-4% a year over a long period of time. And we can do much better than that over time, hopefully in the stock market. I try to tell people there's this concept of a starter home. A lot of graduates want to start out with a home bigger than their parents, in the home that they grew up in. And I say, let's pull it back a little bit and let's work on getting you in the best position to buy a practice and pay off some of that student loan debt. Someday you'll not have one home, you'll have a couple homes if you play your cards right. Then there's investing in what I call career planning, so CE programs. So, implant, Botox, Invisalign, anything that you can do in those first 2, 3, 4 years out of school to enhance your value for your next gig, whether that's going to be an associate somewhere else or becoming a practice owner. And then obviously putting a plan together to become a practice owner as soon as possible. My standard rule of thumb that I like to talk to people is you want to try to put away about 10% of your lifetime earnings towards retirement. If you can do that, I don't care how much money you make, you're going to be okay in retirement. And if you make a lot of money, then you'll have a really nice retirement. But 10% of lifetime earnings can't always start out that way in year 1 or 2. But let's say you go to work someplace, they got a 401k plan with a 3% match. Maybe you put 3-4% in the plan starting out and you increase that maybe 1 or 2% a year until you can get to that 10%. And then you just, let that go over your career, get heavily invested in equities, both US and international, small and large, growth and value, and let the market do its thing. And you'll do very, very well. There's Roth IRAs. Everybody should try to put as much as you can in a Roth IRA in the early part of your career before your income kind of phases you out of that. So Roth IRA is a tax-free vehicle. You fund it with after-tax dollars and it grows tax-free forever. That's a beautiful thing. You guys at your income aren't going to have too many tax-free opportunities. And so a Roth IRA is a critical piece to any financial plan that I put together. Once your income exceeds, the Roth IRA limits, which is about $130,000 for a single person, a little over $200,000 for a married couple, you can no longer do a Roth, but you can do a traditional IRA. And then once a year, you've got the opportunity to do what's called a backdoor Roth, where you can transfer those assets from your traditional IRA into your Roth. And once they get into the Roth, they grow tax-free forever. Again, that's a beautiful thing. You got a variety of employer-sponsored retirement plans. Right now, we're in the process of putting in 2 simple IRAs for clients, one in the Oakland area, one in Dallas, Texas. For small businesses, A simple IRA is a great plan for, businesses that maybe have, 5 to 20 employees. And once you get over 20, 25 employees, then you probably want to take a look at a 401k plan. So that's great. And then, a lot of you guys that are going to be practice owners are going to maybe buy the building or build a building. And so, I'm not opposed to people having investments in real estate, but just remember that, real estate, there's a lot of leverage in real estate. People don't usually put much money down and they've got a big loan against it. I tell people the worst I can do is if you give me money to invest in the market, I can lose all of it. Okay. But in real estate, you can lose more than your initial investment because you have a lot of leverage. You can buy a piece of property for 400,000 and sell it for 200,000 under certain circumstances. So we saw that in 2008 and 2009, the last time we had a real estate bubble. I kind of think we're in one right now, especially in commercial real estate, because a lot of people are not going back to offices. In your space, obviously they are, but there's a lot of people that work in offices that are going to be working from home and staying working at home. And I think commercial real estate's going to have a tough go here when all this money that's been put into the system here in the last year and a half kind of washes its way through. So if you're looking to buy a building, there might be some good opportunities down the road here in the next year or so. That's just my opinion. I'm not an expert on real estate, but I do know some stuff about economic history. Estate planning, I just tell people anything can happen. One of my best friends is 55-year-old marathon runner, no cholesterol problems, not an ounce of fat on him. And tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. Eastern time, he's having open heart surgery. He was running on the treadmill a few weeks ago, was having chest pains, went in, and they say he was literally not a walking time bomb. He was a running time bomb. He's got 4 clogged arteries. This guy eats well. He's, like I said, he runs 2 marathons a year. And crazy. So anything can happen. Make sure you've got your estate plan in place. I'm not an attorney or a CPA, but there's certain things that you can do. If you're single, make sure, or whether you're single or married, make sure you got your beneficiary designations on. I can't believe how many times I visit with somebody who's been working at a DSO or a large group practice for a number of years, and they never put their spouse as the beneficiary, or they got divorced and their ex-spouse is still the beneficiary on their 401k plan. Crazy stuff. So make sure you got your estate planning stuff in order. Bank accounts, investment accounts, autos, insurance policies, safe deposit box at the bank. My wife and I just took a trip to Florida, and every time we go on the road, both of us together, we have a little envelope that's got all of our stuff in there, important numbers and stuff that we put in our safe. And, a couple of our kids know the combination, and it's kind of the go-to package. If the plane goes down and we're both on it, there's one envelope that's got stuff in there so that they kind of know where to go. And if any of you have ever had to settle an estate, how big of a pain in the butt it is. Even if it's organized, it's a horrible thing to go through. So make sure you get your ducks in a row, and that you don't leave your spouse and your children with a bunch of mess to clean up if something happens. You might need a will. Obviously, you need a will. If you're a business owner, you might need a trust. And then if you're a business owner, you've got all kinds of other things you might need to do for business estate planning. Maybe some buy-sell insurance if you got a partner in the business, or if you got an associate in the business, maybe you have some key person insurance on that associate in case. I had a client this year, owns a practice in Minnesota, and tragic situation, associate in the office committed suicide. That associate was probably generating $400,000 or $500,000 of revenue for that practice. And if they did not have a life insurance policy on that associate, that was revenue lost until they found a replacement for that. Don't mean to be cold and callous about that, but you should be insuring if you're a practice owner and you've got associates in the practice, you should be the owner and beneficiary on a life insurance policy on those associates while they're working for you. Art, you have some words of wisdom?
Yeah, I do on the estate planning. I may have told this story for those of you who've heard me on the internet the last 15 months or so. My mom had a very simple estate. She had an IRA and she had her house, and she was the most stubborn human being on the planet. Would not let me take her to an estate attorney. I don't need that. I don't need that. Mom got sick on a Monday. It wasn't looking good. I arranged for a notary to be at the house Friday morning to execute a will and a trust. And Thursday morning, I got a call from her caretaker that we had hired for the week that she had passed away 18 hours before. So I had to go through probate, and I tried. And this is the expert here telling you that I had to settle an estate through probate here in California. And it was a very small estate, and it took over a year and about $18,000 in fees, probate fees, attorney fees. And again, my mother, you couldn't have gotten my mother to an estate attorney if you would have drugged her up and put her in the car. She wouldn't go. So she was very stubborn. So please, please, please take care of your estate documents. And if you have a marriage where one spouse knows everything and the other spouses have nothing, know nothing about it, and one of them passes away, I've been through that scenario. And what you want to do is you want to at least write a letter that says, "Dear family, if God forbid something, if you're reading this letter, something bad has happened to me, here are the people you need to call. You need to call Mark Johnson. You need to call Art Wiederman. You need to call John Smith, the estate attorney. You need to call your insurance agent. And then your team will rally around you." But I am a firm believer, and Mark, I'd love your input on this, on dentists making sure that their spouses are fully involved in the financial planning, know what the strategies are, know where all the assets are. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's all going to come out in the wash. So it just depends on, when do you want the spouse to know? Do you want them to know after you're gone and they've got to clean up the mess? And they, they're struggling with losing you, and now they got to figure out what to do with the money and what to do with this. It's just so important. Hey, we've got a mixed audience on here, and I come from an era where I've done hundreds of women in investing seminars. Okay, and there's all kinds of studies about culture and so forth. And years ago, right, we had a culture that maybe the man was managed the money in the house. Well, that just doesn't hold water. First of all, men die earlier. 50% of women are going to be the primary financial manager of their lives for most of their lives, because men die earlier and women have great jobs. And so it's really, really important. It doesn't matter who is, some people are more gifted with finance than others. There's no doubt about that. But, there's lots of things that we don't like to do. Some people say, I don't want to know about the finances. Just so-and-so, my spouse, my husband, my wife takes care of that. I say, you know what? You're not if you're my client. We're going to do these things together, and there's no one's going to come back 10 years from now and say, I didn't know. And so ignorance is not bliss when it comes to these kinds of things. So it's critically important, and I hope people will just be responsible. And it's really just an act of love. That's all it is. It's an act of love. And if you care about the people in your lives that are going to be the recipients of all your hard work, your spouse, your children, your grandchildren, the Bible says a wise person leaves an inheritance to their children's children. And so you guys have the ability to make a lot of money in your careers, and you can leave an inheritance to your children's children. But don't hide things from your family, because it does come out in the wash. comes out in divorce court, comes out in probate court, and it's a messy thing. Okay, let's see here. If there's any more questions, otherwise, Art, I think I'm done. I appreciate everybody's.
Mark, why don't you go ahead and go back to the beginning of the presentation. Let's put your contact information up. I think it's like the first or second slide. Mark is obviously an expert. If you want to get a hold of Mark, please feel free to reach out to him. Hey, Mark, why don't you just give your phone number out if people want to write it down?
Sure. My phone number is 314-737-8123. That's 314-737-8123. And you can email me at mark.johnson@rbfadvisors.net. The other thing you can do is you can just visit our website at studentloansrx.com and just click on the free consult button up in the top right-hand corner. And even if you don't want a full consult, you can just click on that button. There's a comment section where you can ask me a question, give me your phone number and your email address, and I can get back to you. So Art, I really appreciate being on tonight. And you guys do a great job. I'm really impressed with your podcasts, all the great information that you share through your podcasts and the webinars and everything like that. And man, it's really awesome to have a resource like you that I can refer my clients to that are on their way to practice ownership or have some tax questions to ask on this employee retention tax credit. I mean, that's just amazing stuff. So thank you so much for having me here this evening.
Well, Mark, thank you very much for the great information. I like to work with the best, and Mark is the best, and it goes right back at you. Folks, these webinars are a call to action. You've gotten a lot of good information. I hope you will take some action from this. I hope you'll, reach out to Mark, learn from it, get some good information, and do some really good planning. Please be sure to join us on July 14th, 6 p.m. for Gary Takis. If you want to get out of insurance plans or reduce your dependency on dental insurance plans, this is the webinar that you want to see. We've got several more great webinars coming up, second Wednesday of every month. They are on our YouTube channel, which is, you go to just Google Eide Bailly YouTube, and they're all there to be found, all the webinars. Listen to my podcast, The Art of Dental Finance and Management. And if you need help with this employee retention tax credit, the podcast that I did that came out today with Jim Donovan from our firm gives us an update of kind of what we've learned about this process, because it changes every single day. And Mark, I've got some really good news for you. The Cardinals are ahead 6-2 in the middle of the seventh, playing the Indians. I checked on my phone.
Thank you.
Mark is a Cardinals fan in St. Louis. And so I just thought I'd let him know that. But anyway, folks, thank you so much for joining us. God bless every one of you. Failure is not an option. We're at the end of this pandemic, we all hope. And we want you to be wildly successful. If I can do anything at Eide Bailly, there's my email and my phone number. Please feel free to give me a call. Amanda, you are golden as usual. Thank you for all your help and everything. And you say this will be up on the website in the next couple of days, right?
Yes. Yep.
All right.
Thanks, Amanda.
All right.
Of course.
Guys, have a wonderful, wonderful evening. God bless every one of you. Thank you for attending, and we'll see you next month. Mark, thank you. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Bye, guys.